welcome to the 8th episode of the Armchair Philosophy Podcast. Eighth, that's right.
Yay!
And as you may or may not have noticed, we have Troilus back with us today.
Back in force.
Yes, and as always, Alessandro. This is our, like I said, 8th?
8? We just said it. We
said it a lot. I wanted to, first of all, thank everybody, our listeners, for bearing with us in this sort of hectic month of May. I hope you had a lovely Memorial Day weekend.
And we also want to thank you for your feedback, because we've been paying attention and it's been appreciated.
Yes,
thank
that
you.
has definitely been
It's
appreciated.
good to hear you guys are listening and enjoying and also contributing.
That's true. That's true. Exactly. All over the place, really. Wherever we are, seems to be some sort of positive backlash.
What you were saying, you were popular in the Philippines one day and then Israel the other.
That's right. So, we are global. But anyway, we wanted to keep up with this global theme. Yeah?
Absolutely.
We wanted to come at you guys with a really strong one. We've been away for so long, and we know that you missed us. We wanted to ask a simple question.
A very simple question, and I think it stems out of the discussion. We've had some lovely weather recently, a long weekend. We're all really enjoying life right about now.
Exactly.
Well, hopefully. I mean, maybe you aren't who's listening. I mean, you might be interested in philosophy, in which case chances are you're not having a good life.
That's true.
But the question does become, what is the good life?
Yeah.
What is the good life? How can we determine what it is? Who gets to determine what it is? And can the ideal in its own right really actually be attained, given certain cultural and societal factors that hinder or propel us into finding it?
Hey, Troilus, guess what? I think I have an answer for you.
Go ahead.
I think the good life is unattainable.
I disagree.
I think the good life. I think the idea of a set, absolute, best possible life is a crock. It's a sham. We can get close. We might get close. We might get close to some sort of universal understanding of what a good life is.
Mm-hmm.
But we will never have an absolute answer for this question. We will never have it. Nope.
My goodness, Alessandro, that sounds like an intentionally strong statement.
It sounds like something made to start an argument.
Oh, I'll be damned.
Well, okay. Here's some proof before we get too carried away. Here's some proof.
Let me know.
I think it's difficult. It's difficult to come up with some sort of response for what a good life is in terms of, first of all, understanding whether we're going to talk about just ethics or just virtues of living a good life or a mixture of the two, something like that. So let's say that we've figured that one out and we've solved it, right?
Well, congratulations. We all have our dissertations now.
Well, you're welcome. And it'll be in the mail. Let's say that we've gone over that problem. The next problem after that would have to be something along the lines of figuring out specifically which one of these mediums is the best one to use, and then what within that medium is the best thing within that. Let's assume that we've also solved that as well.
Oh man!
We're on a roll. Let's assume that we know both those things. We know the medium, and we know within that medium we know what is the best thing within that medium to figure out what a good life is. The moment you try to apply it to different cultures that have had different histories and different experiences, you either become a relativist, in which case you're on soft ground,
which you just hate.
Well, no, I don't hate. It's just there's too many holes for a relativist to stand on. Personally, of course, and the chances of something being truly universal are slim to none, simply because you do not have the amount of information and you don't have the ways of getting the right amount of information.
Well, you see,
in order to make that sort of statement.
That's fair enough. And your approach is cynical, which I appreciate.
Well,
it's good, but you're taking it on a manner of imposition, sort of taking or formulating a structure, called a grid, what have you, and then imparting it upon another person and saying, "Here we have found what the good life is. We have it in our hands.
Sure.
Now I am going to give it to you, and you will now have the good life."
Well, thank you.
There you go. I've passed you the good life to you. So you're saying that, if that were to be found, and I were to, let's say I have an object that, within it is the power of the good life, and I give it to you, and you now have the good life. You're saying that, that ideal would be impossible to attain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So, and that's what I'm saying, is the good life, for me, absolutely attainable. Absolutely 100% ideally attainable. Largely because I stick it, my proof in two things. One, the imposition from a sort of, and we'll get to this, your view takes a very societal and imposing view. My view on it is personal. It is personal, and it also largely lies in the fact that I trust most people are stupid.
Fair enough.
Which helps a lot. So,
I mean, you're a philosophy major.
was a philosophy
major.
and now I'm suffering the consequences.
I know, but that whole idea of thinking other people are too stupid comes with that.
You know, my asinine
Like we said, philosophy, not English.
Philosophy. Other people are stupid, condescended. Yeah. My general, looking down on people is deserved. Is deserved. Damn it! I went to college.
Anyway, so get on with this. So you think the good life is personal, only personal.
I think it's personal, and maybe it's just because I'm a Taoist, and that doesn't really help me out a whole lot. I flow like water all damn day.
Right.
So I think, but you bring up an interesting point. On my level, the good life is a personal pursuit. I wake up in the morning and I say, how do I make my life better? Right. What can I do in order to attain this? And you are saying the good life is this thing that we need to be attaining, but ultimately we can't. What's interesting, though, is your view, the credence of your view applies on a much larger level. I can merrily skip and jump about a valley saying to myself, this is the good life, I'm frolicking in a valley, it's so wonderful. But how did I get to that valley? Who has allowed me to be in that valley? Under what circumstances did I arrive in this valley of happiness and good lifery? Mm-hmm. And so you bring up an interesting point. How do we society and law, how does that factor into how we deal with people in the good life?
Well, I look at it this way. I think that the reason why I see definitely why somebody would say a good life is up to the individual. The reason why that I don't buy that specifically is because whatever way you want to look at a good life, mm-hmm. right, in terms of evaluating it, right, putting it against a scoreboard, something like that. Yeah. Whether it's ethics or whether it's a virtue-based system, something like that, you're going to come up against the question of how are my actions interacting with other people. Mm-hmm. Because you might say, my definition of the good life is to frolic about in the valley. Yeah. And that, by definition, includes nobody but yourself.
Oh, yes, but what about all the animals and creatures I trampled on?
What? How big are you?
I'm pretty big.
All right. Anyway, let's assume. I would just like to say, for the sake of this conversation, animal rights. We would have to.
Oh no, but I was playing off your the cause and effect thing. If you're trying to lead a good life, but the consequences of your actions are leading to someone else's life being less good. Is that where you're
essentially because even if you act, unless you're the only person on Earth. Even if you do act in a way where you're the only person in a valley, you're still using a common good. Mm-hmm. Technically, tragedy of the commons, all that sort of stuff, that comes back to affecting, may not necessarily hurt somebody, and we're not talking about rectifying injustices by living a good life that hurts people. Obviously, that's not a good life in any way, shape, or form, right? Yeah. But there's always going to be an effect on other people, and I think that's what ends up making the search for a good life, or the question for a good life, have to take it on a group level. Not a societal level, because obviously you're gonna get either smaller groups smaller than a society as we might imagine it today. So a group underneath a nation, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Or a group underneath a community, even so to speak. But you're still going to have to.
Let's say a family.
You can even say a group within a family. Be honest, a brother, sister,
or a group of friends.
Sure, exactly. The possibilities are endless, really. But there's still possibilities that all end up within a group, not only an individual.
Yeah, but are you saying that you can't mitigate the needs of the people with whom you interact to work with let's face it. Barring sociopaths and people who seek pleasure in the pain of others.
Sure.
All right. This is the nice thing about the imagination. It's like all sociopaths away.
Right.
let's say, you're just surrounded by the people that matter in your life. And that's, let's say, coworkers, friends, family.
You're in a well-ordered society.
Exactly. Luckily we are. We have that pleasure. So isn't it important, though, to ensure that the people that are around you are relatively, enjoying themselves? Misery loves company. If
well, so that's what Paramore wants us to think.
Well, yeah. If your friend, is just really upset and is having a horrible time, and you say, "Oh my God, what's wrong?" and they'll say,
help them.
"You killed my cat."
Whoa, hold on.
They're like, "Oh my God, I killed your cat," and it's like, "I am so sorry."
Right.
You're really upset. You are in turn are upset that person is upset. If that person's really happy that you killed their cat, and you're really happy,
how about they're really happy that they just? How about they're happy because they just won the lottery? Are you going to also be happy for you?
Don't alter my analogy.
Excuse me.
I'm working here.
All right.
So the person's upset. Mm-hmm. You're going to work to remediate that displeasure because it's having an adverse effect on yourself. So is it impossible to say that the allowance, the mitigation of those who exist outside of us, if we can even prove those people exist, am I right?
Comments.
Isn't it important to the happiness unto ourselves, to the good life that we are living, to ensure that those within our social stratas are living a good life as well?
I think it's totally acceptable. It's not a matter of whether or not you want to end up helping people for A, your own gains, I guess, or B, just because you feel like there's a moral obligation to do something like that. Mm-hmm. I think it literally comes down to whether or not your actions have adverse effects that you're not aware of, and the ones that you are definitely
have adverse effects that you're not going to be aware of.
True. So what I'm trying to say is that dynamic is beyond the willingness of the individual. Right? So imagine you're already somewhat aware of the actions that you do that have adverse effects on somebody else. Mm-hmm. And then there are also the ones that you're not aware that have adverse effects on somebody else. We know those exist, right? We know it's sort of like the numinal world. We know it exists, but we shouldn't know it exists, right?
We can reason that it exists.
Yeah, exactly.
Or that such possible consequences exist.
Right, but I'm saying because the reach is so far wide, we willingly encompass something that we think exists, these adverse effects that we don't know about, when we start valuing our judgments and our decisions, that it's hard to get away from understanding the process of understanding a good life outside of a group context, of a group-only context.
So are you saying that you picked me up today, gave me a ride so that we could do this podcast?
True.
On the way you got stuck in traffic, are you saying the guy who so far ahead in traffic, lost his control of his brakes somehow, was in a crash, backed up traffic all the way because the consequences of his accident or his doings somehow led to your displeasure and the displeasure of others, he is no longer capable of attaining the good life?
No. I'm saying simply that sort of thought process, while it doesn't have any bearings on a good life, because I don't think that that involuntary actions come up to understand what a good life is. I don't think that guy was willingly wanting to create a backup, right?
Okay.
And like we said, we're eliminating people who just want to cause displeasure for the sake of causing displeasure. While that particular event or series of events doesn't give us a good position for understanding the good life, it gives us a framework for understanding how certain events come about and sort of attach onto themselves.
Quite frankly, I'm not sure where your argument is going now. If we can't, throw out the legitimacy of a good life simply because unforeseen consequences should be making us bad people.
are part of it.
You're sounding very Catholic right now.
It's not so much the crux of my argument doesn't live so much on unintended consequences. It's part of it, yes. I think the bigger question or the bigger piece of it is I'm much more comfortable with saying or with trying to attack the question of the good life as something that everyone should abide by. It's because the good life sort of means that we're talking about one single thing. There's one great life, right?
No.
Well, hold on a second. There's the question is to find one way to live your life. That should mean that everybody should be okay with living this life in that way, since it's objectively the best life we've got.
Let me give you the primal answer. Here's the best life.
Primitives.
Yeah, make babies and die.
Well,
perpetuate the human race. Is that the good life?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Well, but it's universal.
Right, but that's more genetics than deciding what life is, isn't it?
Not. I mean, you have the decision. We could totally procreate right now. Not together. But we could go outside of this podcast.
We definitely could.
And totally embark on the great human endeavor that is the miracle of life.
We could. We definitely could. However, that, as decision heavy as that may be for us to have to decide on, that comes back to the question of instincts, nurture, nature, that sort of thing. The whole propagating one's own species comes way too close to just genetics, or just the call of the wild, so to speak.
Yeah, but
make it become a decision because to have a good life means we have to make decisions about whether to be virtuous in a certain way, to be ethical in a certain way.
Otherwise, it's not going to be very good for the extension of your line.
Well, that's okay.
You got to make that choice.
You have to make the choice, I suppose. I think though that's too much primitivist. It's way too far. It is primitive,
but I mean, I don't see how your argument can handle it, because if we're looking,
argument can handle it by saying it doesn't account.
If we're looking for a universal good life, I mean, I can't even go beyond saying, I cannot say this. So, okay, we have procreation, make babies, have some good food, right? I like having good food. I'm a huge fan of cooking. Let me finish. I am a good fan. I'm a big fan of cooking. Yeah. I cook a lot. Yeah. I love good food. But, oh my God, all of a sudden some other guy's just like, well, I eat what nourishment I need, but it's not good food. I simply eat what I need to eat, make babies, and die. Oh my God, now what are we going to do? Are we going to start wars about, whose life is better simply because I have different flavors in my food?
No, it's not. It's here. I think that you said it right. You said it earlier, and what I jumped at was the fact that you said good food as opposed to, obviously, just food. The just food bit and the just making babies bit is just, I would say, animalistic, not even primitivist.
Yeah.
Animalistic.
Totally.
That's below the question of the good life.
Yeah, but if you're trying to find what a universal good life, what would a universal good life encompass to you? If you're barring relativism.
If I'm barring relativism, I'm forced to adopt the position, and I'm willing to do this. That there is no good life.
Well, no, okay.
Now, there is no good life in the way that I see the good life on a definition. On a definition standpoint.
I don't
English
know.
Majors, correct us.
It's arbitrary.
It's arbitrary. Anyway, whatever it may be, I'm looking again. I'm going back to what I think the definition of the good life is, in terms of structurally what it may be.
So,
because I'm saying the good life is one that nobody who's right-minded would ever go against as saying this is a bad life.
And according to you, the guy in Mumbai who has an arranged marriage and that is a happy marriage, has a family that loves him and a decent job and a good life, is lesser person than someone who chose their own spouse and
I don't think
tried to choose their own being in America simply because they didn't have the American democratic process of spouse choice.
No, I don't think it has anything to do with A, where you come from, or B, what you do. I think neither position, the Dubai man or the American man, neither has a claim to having figured out the good life.
So even if the person is happy and they are enjoying their life, putting all things aside, like, I stubbed my toe,
on the individual level, you're going to have the
good
good life. On the individual level, you're going to have a good life.
Yeah.
Sure. But the good life, not a good life, the good life is unattainable, because the best life we can come up with simply is going to be too far wide for anybody to come up with.
The best life possible is the best life lived. I mean, we can't just hold some artificial standard to the sky. I mean, that's like saying, hey, this is God.
Well,
this
isn't it?
Is God, and this is totally God, and everybody else's concept of God is absolutely wrong. I mean...
Troilus, do you want to doubt the fact that you're living a good life?
I live a good life.
No, but I'm saying, do you want to live... That's fine, and I am too, but do you want to live with the doubt of having to ask yourself whether or not the life you actually think is the good life actually being the good life?
I doubt it every damn day.
So then why? How are you so sure about saying that you're living a good life?
Because I'm currently enjoying it. I'm happy.
But you could be enjoying a life that's not actually good. Let's say you sit down and think about it and you don't actually enjoy your life. What happens then?
Well, then that's no longer the good life.
But you've been living a lie for all this time.
It doesn't matter if it's a lie, then that's how stupid people factor into it. If you've convinced yourself that you're living a good life, then yadi effing da. Like, Godspeed and prosper.
Well, no, but again
enjoy the ruse.
The ruse? The 1930s called. They want their words back.
I'm just saying, like, it may be wrong. The person may be totally backwards. But that doesn't give us the right to go up and... Well, I mean, we do have the right to go up and say, you're living the wrong life. You know, you need to change this. But if that person is genuinely convinced that they are having the best life possible, and they very well could be, even no matter what we think.
Sure, they could be. It could be that the best life somebody possible. Actually is living the good life.
The good life, and that may be as something as simple as, you know, having a little farm.
They sure as hell aren't listening to this podcast.
Right? Yeah, probably not. So. Or it could be, you know, some, you know, sheik somewhere who's spending $25 million a day on lifestyle.
Sure.
It doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, the onus of responsibility is on the person to deliberate whether or not what they are living is fulfilling. If they're incapable of doing that, well, then they're kind of stuck with whatever life they're living, and you can really only hope to God that it's working for them.
Right, but again,
So
I think we're almost reaching an impasse here.
I think we had an impasse on the first sentence.
Well, that's true, yeah.
But I mean, I on one hand, to partially agree with you, I don't think we can have a universal standard.
Okay, then I'll accept that.
By no means can we have a universal standard
for a good life.
But at the same time, it's not a universal standard. But by God, there is a personal standard to each miserable being on this planet, and perhaps more. Aliens!
Go back to the first episode.
First episode, everyone. First episode. To pursue this good life, and quite frankly, I think it is totally relativistic.
But the moment it becomes relativistic, you start walking those fine lines of
Those are your fine lines.
Well, hold on a second. A relativist is always on the fine line of wanting to almost accept something that's either way too far out there, right? So in terms of saying we'll allow more behavior that's either morally or virtuously objectionable.
Of course, yeah.
That's the first bit.
You know,
and the
it's
second,
like, they're committing genocide, but it's fine, it's their culture.
Yeah, and then the second bit is the paternalistic worry, right? The one where you say you're coming in and say, well, you know, because we are the dominant culture, then we can just simply allow them to go on with this, even though we would otherwise be offended by it.
It's not to say it doesn't have issues. Like, you know, if
it's just
my teenage daughter is slashing her wrists, and I'm just like, oh my God, what are you doing? And she says, I'm living the good life. It's like, well, oh man, I can't argue with that because I said that, you know, whatever is making you the most happy is,
right,
you know, the good life. So yeah,
you do need some limits.
Of course, there's flaws, but banishing the
so can we agree that there is no universal good life?
No universal good life, but relativistic means by which one can find their own personal good life. Totally.
I can maybe allow myself to agree that that we might be okay looking at a relativist standpoint on the individual level. Mm-hmm. Of course, with the actual paternalism.
Yeah. And
the justified one, as in like somebody's dad, somebody's mom. So,
I think this is a good preface to The Good Life Part 2.
In what sense?
Well, we're going to revisit this topic.
Definitely.
And when we revisit it, I think we need to elaborate on what we talked about and talk about the societal implications of the culture and communities in which people thrive, and how the outside forces shape people's views on what a good life is.
Looks like we're going to need to find a sociologist then.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Did we just...
Did we just use sociology in a philosophy podcast?
I think we might need a politician.
We might need a where are we going to find one of those? Anyway, yeah, so there you have it.
I don't think we need a sociologist, Alessandro. We'll never stoop to that level.
Okay, well,
we can do everything and more without sociology.
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
Shut up! Stop being a philosopher.
Hey, I'm trying. Listen, I'm only a relativist when it comes to other people's majors.
All right.
Yeah, but okay. So that, yeah, that's a good place to sort of cut it off.
An interesting concept indeed.
An interesting concept. So that's where we landed.
Well, I hope you all have some brain fodder.
Yeah, and you know what? Let us have it. If you think you've got a better question as to what the good life is, and if you think you actually know if there's universal good life, let us know.
And if you're living the good life, can you invite us to one of your parties?
Yeah, that'd be nice. You know,
that would be awesome.
Yeah, we'll pay for the the door fee.
Shh.
What?
If they're living the good life, they can totally pay for it.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Don't be... Yeah, all right. Anyway, all right. Thanks a lot, fellas. Thanks a lot for listening to
It's been a pleasure again.
8th. Yeah, so for Troilus, this is Alessandro. This is the Armchair Philosophy
And to the empty armchair.
And to the empty armchair, yeah. This is the Armchair Philosophy Podcast signing off. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.
Farewell.